right. Welcome everybody. Oh, there's Julie. Hi, we're filing in, having a little bit of tech this afternoon on your end, this morning on mine, but we're here. Hi everybody.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. See, we've got most everybody here, so we'll go ahead and get started, seeing as how we're running just a little bit behind today. And we have our lovely panelists here, so I want to make sure that we save as much time for them as possible. So, welcome. All right, we're going to take a peek at our agenda. All right, so we'll just do a quick agenda overview. As you know, we always spend a little bit of time getting warmed up for the conversation, so we're going to do that today. Going over the agenda, our learning objectives. We do have a fun little engagement warm up today, and then we'll do our employer and apprentice panel introductions, and then get into the conversation. We will have a large group discussion to reflect on that conversation. And then, of course, we have our call to action, our next steps, and upcoming announcements. One thing I have added into this is a technical assistance preview, topics pending, but I do want to have you have a vision of what this looks like over the next coming months. So we will get on to the next section here, where we're doing our learning objectives. And so this is what we're going to do today and what we hope to accomplish. So I always like to get everybody warmed up coming off of mute and read a learning objective. So who of the participants would like to come off of mute today and read our first one here in green? I see Robin's trying to connect to audio. There we go.
I'll do green.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Okay. So learning objective review. So for green, it says what employers and apprentices share during the panel to identify common challenges, priorities, and pain points that shape how they see the value of an ECE registered apprenticeship program.
Exactly. Right. All right. And who would like to come off of mute? And we're going to call this teal. Who would like to read the teal box?
I can do it. This is Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Analyze how employers and apprentices talk about return on investment, ROI, in their own words and interpret what that means for how intermediaries explain ECE wrap benefits to the early care and education workforce.
Thank you, Beth. And we have this last one here in blue. Who would like to read it?
I got it. This is Liz. Apply what they learn from the panel to adapt the questions, messages, or examples they use to communicate the value and ROI of ECE wraps to support program growth and quality.
Wonderful. Great. So we're going to listen to our employers and apprentices today, and then we're going to have a discussion about it. And then, as part of our call to action, put some of that work into action in our next coming months. And I see Tony has joined us. Hi, Tony. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump to the next slide unless there's any questions. Okay. Jump into our engagement warm up, which you can see is Olympic focus, because why not? I mean, is anybody else doing anything? That's what my life is surrounded around right now. Okay, so we're going to do a quick Winter Olympics themed engagement warm up. So what I want you to do is look at these events. We have downhill skiing, and this is Lindsey Vaughn. And then we have the skeleton, and that is Mystique Rowe. Then we have speed skating. This is Erin Jackson. And then we have ice dancing. This is Amelia Zingas and Vadim Kolsnik. And so what I want you to do is just put in the chat, which of these Olympic sports would you absolutely not want to try? Which you would not volunteer for. It does not matter which one. You're just saying, I'm out. I do not want to do this. So go ahead and drop it in the chat, and panelists, feel free to participate. Why not? I'm not sure yet. They all have problems for me. But I will say the skeleton does intrigue me a little bit, but then I think I'd be on it and regretting that decision. Karen, skeleton. You've tried bobsledding. That's enough for me. None of it, Jeremiah says, looks too cold. The skeleton, it looks so uncomfortable, Tony says. Yaya says downhill skiing, too scary. Same. Now, plenty of people downhill ski, but I feel like I'm one fall and back injury away from like having really bad problems. So I definitely am out on the downhill skiing, especially at that speed. Ice dancing, because I hate the sensation of slipping. I did try skating the other day. It was very hard. Skiing, based on the, if you Vaughn crashed, you'd be dead. Downhill skiing, too much cold. Ice skating, too precise. Yes, they're so picky. Speed skating, skeleton, right. Well, thank you all for sharing. It's kind of fun to think about these things and reflect on them. And just tying that to um, just tying, and you gave your whys too. So just tying that to what's going on with the conversation today, like these things can be totally terrifying, or like maybe a lot of you said it's too cold, right? But you have coaches and practice and gear and all the things to make this activity that feels not possible doable. And so we just kind of want to think about that as we're listening to our employers and apprentices today about what makes their job hard, what makes it hard to implement a wrap, and how we might think about the wrap as an Olympic sport, right? Like, what kind of coaching do we need? What kind of gear do we need? What kind of conditions do we need to make these feats possible? All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And we will go ahead and move on to the next slide. And I've got somebody in the waiting room, so I'll go ahead and let them in and just double check the chat. And we're good on the chat. All right. Okay, so before we jump into our employer and apprentice panel, I want to introduce you to a tool that will help us get the most out of the discussion. So this looks familiar to most of you who we've done large group discussions before. It's the same setup, and we're going to use it for live notes later on. I thought that it might be helpful for you to have this in front of you while listening to the employer panel. So, Missy, if you could drop that large group discussion notes link in the chat, that would be super helpful. What I've done is I've put it in a Google Doc for you. So if you wanted to create a copy for your computer while we're listening, you could, and just type in notes. Just wanted to have something for you to support our discussion later on. All right. So you can see that I've got these broken into 3 categories. So we're going to continue the Olympic theme on this PLC into our large group discussion. And it's really just bringing it out to categories. This is not like first, second, third of importance or anything like that. It's just breaking it out. And so this is what I'd like you to, these kind of areas that I'd like you to focus on, and they do align with the question asking as well. All right, let me just double check the chat here, and Misty's got it in the chat. Thank you, Misty. All right, we're going to go on to the next slide unless anybody has any questions. Looks like we're doing good. All right, we're going to do our introductions, which I'm really excited for. All right, so now I'm really excited to introduce the voices at the heart of today's conversation, our employers and apprentice panelists. These are the individuals living the day-to-day realities of early childhood programs and apprenticeship participation. So they bring firsthand experience with the challenges, trade-offs, and opportunities we've been discussing, and they've graciously agreed to share what this all looks like in practice with us today. So I would like to jump into these introductions, and I want to just prep them up first. I guess since it's on the screen here, first we can start with the individuals from the Dreamery, which is a early childcare program that is operated by YWCA Kalamazoo. They work with Southwest Childcare Resources as their registered apprenticeship intermediary. And these individuals are also connected to a talent pipeline management employer network that has started in Kalamazoo in the Edison, North Side, and East Side neighborhoods. So with that, I would love for Lawanda and Vanessa to just come off of mute and say hello and add anything else that you'd like to add as an introduction.
Hello, good afternoon, and good morning. My name is LaWanda White, and I am a coach supervisor here at the Y. And I love what I do, and it's a pleasure to be on a panel with you all and learning and getting to know your experience because we all have different experience. So I'm excited and eager to hear about those.
Thank you,
Yes.
Lawanda.
So, good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Collins Smith, and want to thank you for this opportunity. I serve as the Associate Director for Workforce Development at YWCA Kalamazoo. My role centers on developing workforce pathways in early childhood education through credentialing and, of course, apprenticeship program. And of course, it's so important that this empowers our educators and strengthens our program quality. I am passionate about creating opportunities that empower our educators, and I'm also honored to be a part of an organization that supports both our families and the professionals that care for our children.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the work you all do. All right, and so moving over to the other side of the screen here, we have our friends from the Early Learning Center located in Grand Rapids. Steepletown Neighborhood Services acts as the registered apprenticeship program intermediary. And with that, I'd like to bring on Jen and Yaya to introduce themselves.
There we go. Hi, I'm Jen Barloggi. I'm the director of the Early Learning Center, and we also have a partner site in one of the local public schools, so I run both sites. I've been in early childhood since, I could walk, basically, and have had the privilege of being able to be a part of the apprenticeship program for the last 3 years as a mentor to the apprentices. We employ one apprentice per classroom, and I have 5 classrooms this year. So we have 5 apprentices, and I've been able to work with about a dozen or so apprentices over the last couple of years. So that's been great to watch them learn and grow in the classroom. And Yaya was one of our apprentices the first year that we started working with Steepletown. And so we're excited because she's now on staff as an associate teacher with us. So I'll let her introduce herself a little more.
As Jen said, my name is Jahaira Munoz, but I go by Yaya. I am a teacher assistant here at the Early Learning Center. It is my second year,
As a TA.
And it's been great. I love being with the kids. I love to see them every day, and I'm just great to be here.
Thank you both so much. And we have a special guest here with us as well today, Tony, and I'll let Tony introduce herself. But I also wanted to say that LaWanda and Vanessa also had their project coordinator scheduled to come today. But again, illness, sickness, family things. So Tony, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tony Wolford, and I am the ECE Apprenticeship Program Manager for Steepletown. I have been in this role specifically for about like a year and a half, but I was a coach first, so I actually coached Yaya, and we work super closely with the ELC because we do manage the ELC, and they're like our strongest partner, especially because, like Jen said, being able to have one apprentice per classroom is super awesome. I absolutely love this work. So I've worked for Steepletown for a long time. I was actually a preschool teacher with Steepletown from 2017 to 2019, and then came back to Steepletown in 2023, coached for a little bit, and then became program manager when then our other one decided to, he's actually teaching now, so he's doing something a little bit different, but super passionate about ECE, super passionate about advocating for it. And yeah, I'm just super excited to be here and to I've just watched like Yaya grow, and it's just been amazing. So yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for joining, Tony. We really appreciate it. And, these project coordinators, I know you all know this because some of you are these project coordinators, are so important for these positions to link the registered apprenticeship system to what's actually happening on the ground. So thank you for sharing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into our questions. I'm going to go to the next slide. And I'm going to pull up questions one by one. And so just for the sake of following what's on the slide, if we could have our employers respond to the question first, and then we'll have our apprentices, Lawanda and Yaya, respond to the question. And then Tony, of course, if there's anything you want to add to the conversation, please feel free to do so. So this first question is focused on experiences, challenges, and pain points. Pain points is a workforce development word that we want to integrate here. And so to my employers, what challenges in running your program or supporting staff do you wish you had more tools to address? So I'd love to hear from Jen and Vanessa on that.
Okay. I can start.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to deal with the first part of the question. But first, I want to say apprenticeship, it creates a structure around workforce development. And this is something that many programs wish they had. Running an apprenticeship program comes with challenges, of course, and particularly centered around coordination, mentor time, and administrative tracking. It requires intentional planning to balance training with daily program operations. We also recognize that our apprentices are often balancing work, school, personal responsibilities. So support systems, we make sure, our goal is to make sure we're putting some structures that, in place, the program that becomes more manageable. So in doing so, the long-term benefits of this is to improve retention, stronger skills, and a more stable workforce, because these are the things that far outweigh the initial challenges.
Yeah, I would say we deal with a lot of the same struggles as was just talked about. I know one of our biggest issues is just having enough hands that are trained, and that are passionate. And so it's just hard to find adequate and experienced staff. Not to mention, like, I don't want just bodies in a room. I want people who genuinely care about children and giving them the best. And so that is definitely something that we have gained with the apprenticeship program, is we have people who, because it is so difficult to be an apprentice and work full time, you have people who are dedicated to doing this. And if they're not, they don't last, which is part of a problem too, right? But with that, we genuinely try to support them as much as possible. But I know that the challenge is having the bodies that are dedicated and excited about the work that we do and willing to continue to grow and learn. It has been a huge benefit because they are getting trained while working with us. It's great just on the job, hands-on training for them to be learning about it from their classrooms, as well as being in with the students. So as they're learning all of these great things about early childhood, they're also getting to experience them in the classroom.
Yes, and one of the things that I wanted to back up and make sure I address more in depth is the challenges and supporting our staff, because the barriers that exist are more outside of the classroom than the inside. Things like financial stress, transportation, getting to and from work, balancing their work life with the family responsibilities. And one of the things we also really see a need for is more tools that are centered around confidence building, because you get them there, but what it boils down to sometimes is them believing in themselves. And that is one thing that is so very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa and Jen. Those are great takes, and I'm so happy you shared. I want to give time to our apprentices, Yaya and Lawanda. So if you'd like to come off mic and answer this question, what parts of your work or career have been most difficult? And where would additional support or opportunities help you succeed?
Yes. Oh,
You want to go
oh,
first? I can go
okay.
first.
Go ahead. You're gonna have to
Okay.
talk a little loud.
Okay. I will say one of the parts that was a little bit difficult was balancing working in the classroom and also going to school at the same time. As you know, I had to learn how to do lesson planning and how to support kids with behaviors and even to support each child because everybody learns differently. And documentation, it was really hard. I struggled a little bit, but I was able to succeed thanks to my mentor. Thanks for the patience and the time that she will give me and take the time to teach me how to do the stuff and give me the tools and how to help the kids to help them. And that really helped me.
Thank you, Yaya. Lawanda? Lawanda, would you like to share?
Sorry, I was muted. What I find challenging for me has been balancing life and staying focused. Being a single mother, working a full-time job, going to school for my associate's degree, and also being trauma informed, active. We have a lot of children, families that come from trauma, and we have to, as educators, we have to be able to deal with that and find strategies and ways to help them cope and find support for them. I find it with the help with mentoring from my mentor. Actually, Miss Vanessa is one of my mentors. Bless her heart. And then also with the wraparound services that the ECE career pathway have. There's so many challenges that I have had along the way, but the most important thing that stuck with me was something that Miss Vanessa said was to believe in yourself and to have that self confidence in yourself and staying motivated because there's so much going on around us in our homes, at work, and we just have to be able to balance all of that and continue to reach your goals and achieve what you want. So there was. I was going to say something I can't remember, but I'm sorry. But just those were some just balancing life and moving forward in this world. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all of you for that. And I know we hear kind of reoccurring themes. These are things that you probably hear from your employer and apprentices too. But one thing I do want to highlight is, this idea of like confidence and motivation and believing in yourself. I mean, I'm so thankful that you shared that because it's kind of one of those things that you skip over. You're like, okay, what kind of wraparound supports do we
Yes.
need? What kind of what kind of structures do we need, but also just like this very like human connection piece where it's like let's help people find the motivation and the ability within themselves. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I'm going to move to the next question. And we'll start with employers again. And so that I can support you all in this not being as clunky. Jen, if we can start with you this time, I want to talk about return on investment, or ROI is how we talk about it in the workforce development world. We want to hear it from your words. So the question for you is, How have you been able to use the apprenticeship program to address staffing, quality, or other challenges in your program?
Yeah, I think just having apprentices here has helped address a lot of the issues, period. Um, I know that some programs use the apprentices as the teacher assistant or the assistant teacher from the get-go. I really have tried my hardest to make it so that the apprentices are an additional person in the classroom, so that they can genuinely be getting that hands-on training, that they're not forced to do everything all at once, so that they can feel like they have a little bit of breath that they can take when studying and working full time. But with that, it does still kind of present challenges with staffing because I still have to have two other people in the classroom. But I think that having that apprentice in there, it does help when one person is out, that apprentice is there, they count in ratio so they can, I don't have to find subs, which is nice. And again, when we're talking quality, I think that having the apprentices actively learning while working has just shown, again, the quality of teacher that they are is way better than a lot of the people that I've seen that come in, as an 18-year-old just wanting to work part-time as a floater. There's less buy-in, there's less desire to be the best teacher you can be when you have apprentices coming in and again learning about it while they're working. It just, the quality of teachers that we have seen be produced from the apprenticeship program are top notch. Like I try my hardest to keep them on my staff if at all possible, because we see how great they are and how well they're learning. We want to keep them if we can. So that's been great. It also has helped motivate some of our teachers as well that have been in this for a really long time, because when you're mentoring someone who's new and fresh and getting all of this information for the first time, that can be reinvigorating for teachers as well. And again, having those extra hands in the classroom does help with burnout as well. So it actually has solved a multitude of problems, which has been great. Not that it doesn't have its own added workload to it as well, but for the most part, I think that having them here and as a part of our staff has been way more of a benefit than a challenge.
Thank you, Jen. Vanessa?
Okay, so when it comes to apprenticeship, it has helped the Y, I think, move from reacting to staff shortages to intentionally building our workforce. We've used our apprenticeship as a strategy to address both staffing and quality at the same time. It allows us to grow our workforce by supporting our staff while they earn their credentials, obtaining on-the-job training, while also earning a salary. And this, of course, helps to improve the retention in recruitment. At the same time, the training and mentorship components provides, it really strengthens them in their classroom practice and doing it on the job, having someone there, to really build them up and say, hey, oh, you're doing a wonderful job, really helps with their confidence. So what we have found out that instead of constantly reacting to staff shortages, we're more intentionally now in developing our staff, and that has that long-term impact and provides program stability and of course, definitely quality.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa. All right, I want to shift over to our apprentices, Yaya and Lawanda. So this is your question. How has participating in the apprenticeship helped you improve your skills, your working conditions, and career opportunities? And Yaya, let's start with you.
Okay. Participating in the apprenticeship program has helped me build in confidence in the classroom and as well learning more about early childhood. I've has mentioned I've learned how to do less intentionally do lesson plan and support the children's social emotional needs, and as well see that the observations that we do helps our teaching practices. And I feel like this gave me a career opportunity because I got the hands-on experience in the classroom while also going um, towards my education at the same time, which was great.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Lawanda?
Yes, I can say that the apprenticeship has impacted my life and to me it's like a stepping stone, like an open door for opportunities, like the on the job training. It covers cost of trainings. It allowed me to strengthen my communication skills, leadership skills, being able to model and share my experience and being intentional about the work that we do. It also have made me it I want to say it has kind of shifted and helped me, no, what I want to say align, it has helped me align my life and career to what I'm going to school for. I'm going for early childhood development, but it has helped me so like it's like a stepping stone. Like, okay, I'm getting the on the job training. I'll be able to experience. I'll be able to show my skills through apprenticeship. I'll be able to mentor those who are coming into the CDA apprenticeship. I'll be able to give feedback. I can be able to not just it benefit me, but benefiting others before me, um, be, before after me, excuse me, before me and after me. Sorry, but it's been a great experience having going through the apprenticeship program, and I definitely recommend it for those who want to try it on the job training, and you get paid. You'll be able to pay your bills. You know. It's really great, and the salary is great too. So I'm just truly blessed for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawanda. And we'll move to our next question. But I just want to say, Lawanda, I know I came before you, but you
Yeah.
do benefit me still. So you benefit
Oh,
the
okay.
ones that came before you and after you. So
I
I
see.
benefit from your existence in this field. All right. So the final focus area, and we'll start with our employers again. And Vanessa, I'll have you start. And your question, so this is about how you, and you have a little bit already, but we'll just dive into it a little bit more. How you would communicate with your peers about ECE wrap. So your question, Vanessa and Jen, is how have you been able to use the apprenticeship program? Um, oh, I messed that up. Oh my goodness, they're the same questions. That's a huge typo. So I'm just going to be on the fly here and we're going to make a different question up. So what I want to know is if you had to pitch this to another director or administrator in a, a group that you had or a early childhood networking group, like what would you say to them about the reasons why they should look into bringing registered apprenticeship into their program? And Jen, if we could start with you, that would be great. I'm sorry, I'm switching the question up on you. I did not notice that.
That's okay. Yeah, so my elevator pitch basically for the apprenticeship program is kind of like what I've been saying. You're by having an apprenticeship program in your whether it's a daycare, a preschool, a child care center that covers everything, even K through 12 schools. I really think that by having dedicated professionals who are recognize that it's going to be a lot of work, but hopefully a short period of work of having to go to school and work full time. In the end is just going to create some very dedicated teachers, and we desperately need that in our field. We're struggling to get dedicated and educated staff right now in early childhood. And so By taking a part in the apprenticeship program, we're actively doing that. We're creating those within our own ranks. And also, as someone who requires a certain level of quality within my staff, it is nice to also have the apprenticeship program where I get them from the beginning and can mold them to what the greatness that I know they can have. Instead of them having bounced from place to place, trying on different things and doing different things and learning different rules and expectations. We get them from the beginning and can grow them strong. So, and it helps with staffing.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen, for sharing. And Misty is my superhero of the day who posted my actual questions in the chat, which is very similar to Jen, what you spoke about. So Vanessa, I'll just say it because, I put the effort into writing it, right? We'll say what the question is. So when talking to other employers, how would you describe the ways the apprenticeship can be used to address real challenges in their program? So Vanessa, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, awesome, awesome. This is a wonderful question. So, in speaking with other employers, I would describe apprenticeship as a workforce solution, not necessarily just a training or credentialing program, because it builds character, it builds leadership, confidence. It really prepares our teachers as they move forward, and in the future in their in their program, that hey, there is nothing really that they cannot achieve. It helps to address also the challenges of staffing shortages, turnover, and maintaining quality staff. Uh, I I would tell them that they get the opportunity to really grow their employees, their staff, while they earn their credentials. Um, this will most likely, I say, make your staff feel invested. Once you get them to really identify that you are invested in them, um, their growth improves, and it improves retention. The training strengthens their classroom practice immediately. And instead of constantly reacting, I'll tell them that instead of them constantly reacting to hiring, that it will help them to build a sustainable workforce pipeline, and both for the staff in the agency. So you have growth, you have the agency growing, and then you have that individual growing at the same time. So yes, I can keep going on and on and on.
Yeah. You're great. Thank you, Vanessa. I just found myself being really proud of the way you guys are talking about registered apprenticeships and ECE, because I know it is a lot to learn. So I want to
Yes.
pass it over to the apprentices, and Lawanda, we'll start with you. And the question is, when talking to fellow early educators, how would you describe the ways apprenticeship can help them improve their work or grow their careers?
Well, it is a process. I will let them know that it is a process that anyone can do. I will start off with the enrolling in the ECE apprentice or ECE career pathway to get CDA certified. And then they must work in childcare, counting or calculating 200 hours of service, whether it's volunteer or you're teaching on the job, training. Um, then I will let them know that they will go for they'll go for their CDA credentials. After obtaining their CDA credentials, they will be able to go in and get their apprenticeship because they have the 200 hours, 200 hours working with children. I will let them know that it is very rewarding, investing in the future. The work that we do will never be forgotten. It's rewarding in ourselves being able to teach our young babies, and seeing them years later and like, oh wow, I taught you when you were just 2, 3 years old, or even them much years later, being able to say, "Oh wow, they are a doctor, or they might even be working on me, or something like that in the hospital." So just being able to let them know that the impact that they do now, and when they invest in themselves, as they invest in the future, which the children are our future, it is self gratifying, and it is impactful, and it does make a difference. It was something that will make you feel good. You know how when you wanna you want to make a difference. Some people don't think, they're like, "Oh, I just want to make a difference." I guarantee, if you invest in the future, go through the apprenticeship, get your CDA, you're not only helping um, infants, toddlers, but you're helping a community, you're helping families, you are learning. You are also getting certified in your CPR training. These are life changing trainings that is crucial, that we would need. You may be out in the street somewhere at the store, and someone may be going into cardiac arrest, and you're the only one in the store that knows how to do CPR. So not only that, what this would do, it will carry you through life, and it will be impactful. You will be enriching yourself and those around you, and it's great. Um, it's a great program, and I recommend it. I let them know that I went through it. I went through steps. I started as being a lead teacher, from a lead teacher to a program coordinator, from a program coordinator, and now I am a supervisory coach, and I model. I mentor, excuse me. I also model, implement. You do, I do, we do. So yeah. I would just lay it all down and let them know the full benefits of it. To me, there is no negative side when you are investing in something greater than yourself. So yeah, I let them know where to invest, and how well and how good they will feel once they have achieved their CDA. They could be proud of themselves, and it also is recognized in 50 states, and yeah. So yeah.
Thank you, Luanda. Thank you all so much for being on the panel here. We're not done yet. We have a little bit of time for some Q&A, and our panelists have agreed to answer any questions that you might have. So I'd love to have any of our panelists come off of mute and use this opportunity that we have to hear from the people on the ground. So does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
I do.
Oh, yes, Luanda.
For in Grand Rapids, it's sorry, I forgot the name already. Please forgive me.
Early Learning Center with Steepletown.
Was Stapletown, yes. I was wondering, like, how often, and I'm pretty sure you guys do have personal PD days, professional development days. Um, my thing was, do you have trauma informed uh, a trauma informed enforcement, how to deal with trauma with children, because they learn different. They come from different backgrounds, and I know um, when children get into our center, they often act in ways that we don't know. We're getting to know them, and we have to be able to strategize and understand their needs and their behaviors. And sometimes some people, oh, they're just being bad, or they're just being curious, but that's all they know. And as educators, we have to be able to recognize that. So my question, I'm sorry, is trauma informed? Are you guys trauma informed? And
Absolutely.
often.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a nonprofit preschool. And so we have a 3-year-old program and a 4-year-old program. And so all of our families, we are free. We participate in the free pre-K for all for the 4-year-old program. And then we model that with our 3-year-old program and have private funding. And so with that, though, we are obviously working with families that have greater needs. We also are in an area where majority of our families are from other countries, and so we aren't necessarily a bilingual program, but we do have Spanish speaking staff in every one of our classrooms. Also, majority of our apprentices are Spanish speaking and actually are taking ESL classes with their apprenticeship program. So we do understand the diverse needs of the different families around us. I'm trauma informed as a director to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of the staff so that I can support them in the way that they need, because we all have backgrounds, right? And then as a staff, we go through several trauma informed style trainings, as well as implicit bias trainings, making sure that we genuinely understand who we are as people so we can better meet the needs of the students that we are working with. So we train a lot on that. We also deal with several challenging behaviors. We have several of our students. We usually have about 25% of our students that have some form of special need, whether that be they need an IEP for speech. We work with Arbor Circle, who does like in-home services as well as in-school services for social emotional support. And so we're constantly doing trainings on that as well, how to best meet the needs of the students, how to read an IEP, how to implement an IEP into your individualized lesson plans. Oh yeah, we do it all. Yeah.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
You have to, because life in the classroom and not doing it makes it even harder. And also it's what they need. So I hear you on that. Thank you, Lawanda, for that question. And then do any of our subrecipients have any registered apprenticeship questions for our employers and apprentices while we have them here? Give everybody a minute to think about it. Come off of mute if you'd like. Or Tony, you have anything you want to add since you came?
Nothing too much to add. I definitely agree with everything that everybody was saying when it comes to the apprenticeship. I'm really glad that we can help that. There's a lot of burnout with ECE, and I'm glad that the apprentices have more of a motivation to stay in ECE. And we're seeing that more centers are starting to pay more too. I think that's super important because there are still employer centers that we work with that are still paying only like $12, $13 an hour. And it's like, we cannot expect people to live off these wages. So we're trying to advocate for higher pay. So yeah, I'm just like happy that we can support our apprentices and our employer partners in any way that we can. And shout out to both of our coaches too, who do a lot of like the background work and support the apprentices throughout their time here. And shout out to all the mentor teachers. So yeah, I agree with everything that everybody said.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jen, Lawanda, Vanessa, Tony. I think I see Mike on here who's a Steepletown person. So I think thank you to everybody who showed up to be a part of the conversation today. You're more than welcome to stay, but we're going to transition out of the panel and into a large group discussion and reflection. So stay if you like. Otherwise, we'll see you later, and it was so nice seeing you all. Thank you for coming. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to get my text set back up here. I'm going to share my screen and move us into this next section. Okay, one moment here. Sorry about that. All right. Current slide. Great. All right, so this is just getting us, transitioning us back into the PLC from our panel discussion. And these points right here are going to get us prepped for our large group discussion. It also matches the note-taking document that I shared with you earlier. So we're going to make an Olympic playbook, everybody. So think of ECE wraps as a winter Olympic journey. We're going to use gold, silver, and bronze medals as a metaphor to organize our ideas and reflections. And so I have them listed here. And so as you listen to the panel, you heard about challenges, tools, and experiences, and the ways the ECE wrap creates real value for both the employers and the apprentices. And so now we're going to take some time to reflect on what stood out and think about how to communicate that value to others. So we're going to take a few minutes to reflect individually. Try to capture at least one idea for each of the medal categories based on what you heard during the panel. And Misty, you can go ahead and post that in the chat. I'm going to set my timer here and go on mute and get ready to take live notes. But if you want to take about, let me see how much time we have here. We have a little bit of time. Take about 3 to 5 minutes to jot some things down and think individually. We will come back and have a discussion. We have about a minute or so left, so keep thinking. And like I said, I'd love to have one example from each of you in the categories. As you know, we gather all the information collected from the chat and from the discussion that we have and put it back out to you. And so the more you share, the more information we have to put back out there. So just start wrapping up your thoughts and we'll have a discussion in about 30 seconds. Great. While you're wrapping up, I'm going to start taking some of the items from the chat and popping them in where I see them. Maybe, if I can. I can do it here. All right. So, Misty, if you could help me with what's going on in the chat, and then I just invite anybody to also come off of mute as well. I'll go ahead and start filling in what we have here. So, Misty, go ahead, and I know we've got some going in the chat there. So if you want to start sharing with me and I'll start typing in, that would be great. And then again, welcome anybody to come off of mute.
In the silver category, we have elevator pitch for apprenticeships and the impact on apprentices in that pitch, specifically that.
And the what?
The impact on apprentices, specifically in that pitch, making sure that's noted.
Thank you.
Yep. We have a gold one to add. Having an apprentice in the classroom, not acting as an assistant to help reduce burnout.
And I will follow up on these notes also afterwards. Okay.
Sure. We have a gold entry for the trauma-informed training piece and how important that is. Just trauma-informed training.
Mm-hmm.
A silver entry for placing apprentices as a third person in the room, not the primary assistant teacher.
Right. It's like, almost sounds like it's two birds, one stone, right? Like the apprentice gets more time to process what they're learning and apply it. And the people in the room, you're offsetting burnout, you're supporting like breaks, maybe call offs, things like that. All right. What else do we have, Misty?
We have a bronze entry for ECE wraps as a workforce solution.
Okay.
We're going back up to silver. We have workforce development tool, meeting the needs for talent development.
My friend Michael Evans says talent development is talent retention.
Love that. All right, back to bronze, the trauma-informed training piece again here.
Okay.
All right, and then up to gold, helping with staff retention, burnout, turnover rates, and balancing work/personal life and coursework. That can present as a challenge to apprentices.
Don't mind my spelling, guys. All right. What else? Anything else?
Bronze, we have benefits of the program. So just sharing, getting really clear on the benefits of the program.
Yep.
Gold, another entry for, it's really like a second to what we just put in there. It says juggling work, family, and apprenticeship. Recognizing that that's come up, yeah. All right. And then silver, we have ECE wrapped support apprentices. We have a couple of entries from Julie, but they don't have like medals. So,
Julie, where would you like them?
Julie, one is on hearing the passion from both the employers and the apprentices for ECE and bringing in new folks into the
let's
realm.
put that in the gold.
Okay.
And we'll put the other one in the silver.
You got it. So that first one was hearing the passion from both the employers and the apprentices for ECE and bringing in new educators.
Yeah, that's a conversation we've been having a little bit. Like, are people just training those that they already have in-house, or are they using it as a tool to bring new people into the field? Yeah. All right. And what was the silver one?
The silver one was mentor programs are very important with clear defined roles.
All right.
We have an additional silver, taking what apprentices learn in their coursework and applying it in the classroom. And an additional one on the silver is mentor teachers supporting apprentices throughout the program.
Okay.
You want to keep going with the remaining?
No, I want to hear if there's anybody else that wants to add anything, or I'd like to just hear some people come off of mute what they thought about what was shared, or just like getting the chance to hear employers and apprentices talk about how this affects their everyday life. I'd just love to hear directly from you all.
Probably out there. Just listening to everybody, and also just from my own experience, that like understanding how this just comes full circle for everybody, whether we've been an end user of childcare or we're here to, as this is our job and we're trying to build up this program, it's like it really does touch everybody, including the apprentice and their families. So I know there's not like formalized graduations necessarily for this program, but and the opportunities I've had to attend like apprentice graduations and just seeing like how it, bringing their own support system there to, celebrate their achievement. It's like so rewarding to see that there is just a different way to get to your career path. And like, it's not always like a straight line, but it's, just the difference that it makes around the whole like community, family, just all of it. And I think the apprentices, especially that shared today, were really clear on identifying like the difference that they feel that they make internally. Another thing I'd add is like hearing, I think it was maybe Vanessa that had said about the mentors that like it basically kind of helps them in their own job to reinvigorate like, oh, this is why I do this job. Because you have no choice but to like model a good example when you have someone watching you to like train them. And I think it helps them to like, oh, like this is why I do this job, because as they're explaining it, it's helping them kind of like regain a passion that they might have an experience in burnout or something like that. That's all.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, Nicole. One of the things that I want to address in reference to mentoring, it is so important that, I know that like CCR, they have the agreement for mentors and blah, blah, that actually tells them what their job is. But it is so important if you as each child care center and to actually have a mentoring manual, because that manual actually helps that mentor as he or she goes along the way. If they have questions, they can go back to it, because the actual supervisor, somebody may not be around at that time to answer questions. But when you train your mentors, beyond just saying, hey, I want you to mentor, but actually give them something solid to work from, it is really, really so helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. There was somebody else and I didn't see who it was, but they had come off mute.
It was me, Nicole.
Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to add, what really stuck out to me was the passion. And the passion on both ends, the apprentices as well as the employer. As I was listening to them, is everything that you hope that you hear from. I mean, they talked about, this program has really helped me in so many ways and how I'm so thankful for this opportunity. And then from the employer point of view, it was to be able to say, not only did we invest in you, but we also promoted you. So as a result of your dedication and hard work, here's the next step in this process. So for me, I just sat back and I was so excited and just smiling to see that the program is working and is doing what we said it would do. So that's what really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I know. And we've been like really focused in on incentives, right? But like hearing them talk about the ROI in their own words today, where it's like, it's almost like, yeah, the idea that an employer invested in me. And as a result, this is what happens next, both from the employer's experience and the apprentice experience. I think that's been really good for me today too, is to like have it re-elevated. Like ROI from our lens is different than ROI from the apprentice and employer lens. And I think they really elevated some things today for me personally that I was like, oh, yeah, we can talk about this more. So thank you. Anybody else that have anything they want to share or anything that stood out? Okay. Well, I'm really excited to listen back to the recording, dive into everything that we heard, take so many notes, get this table organized for you because I just think that it's gold what we heard today, like these nuggets of wisdom that we can take with us into our work. And I just want to make sure that you have access to all that information today in a very easy way. And so I'm excited to get back into that and do that for you. So I'm going to move us along. I just want to give one more chance for anybody to come off of mute and say anything that they would like about our panel today, what they heard before we move on. Okay. I'm going to go on to our next slide then. So we're going to do a call to action right now, which takes everything that we heard today and really kind of like moves it into, okay, and then what's next? And so what we hope from this call to action is that in your next employer conversation, start with like a diagnostic question before sharing information, before sharing like, oh, we have this new opportunity, or, oh, hey, ask what's been your biggest challenge with apprenticeship retention as an example, or what would make this program feel more valuable to you? Or you could even steal my questions that I had up here. Don't take the second box. I'll update that actually or the third box. I'll update that before I put it on the drive. But yeah, so that's the goal is like, how can you frame some of the questions that you're asking when you're having these conversations before just, giving out information or dealing with some technical stuff. Try to connect and give yourself enough time to be able to like let that passion out on you. So the goal would be to listen and adjust and then report back. What did you learn that you didn't already know? So I'm excited to hear about that. And I know we have progress meetings happening this month and whatnot, and it's also something that we can check back in future PLCs. So I'm going to go to our next slide where we're going to do a technical assistance preview. So I'm just noting that all of these TA topics are subject to change. But we wanted to kind of give you a look at what's going on. And so we're obviously doing our employer apprenticeship panel today. And I just wanted to let you know that for office hours this month on the 24th, I believe it is, next week, Tuesday, we have the Leo Mark team on office hours. So if you're thinking about implementing Mark, if you're like, who is Mark? If you are doing it and have questions, or recently I just heard that there were some changes happening, and I'm like, what? This would be a great time to come in and just have an unstructured, casual conversation with the people that are know the most current details. They will be there. And since we liked the idea so much of having a guest at office hours, we're like, who else can we have at office hours? And maybe we thought that might draw some more of you in and attending. And so if we're looking at the office hours column in comparison to the peer community column, in March, we're going to be having a presentation on employer-led networks. And we are hoping for office hours, in addition to having them potentially on at the PLC, to be able to have them follow up that PLC in the office hours. So for some of these bigger topics like the employer-led networks and funding strategies, we thought let's use PLC and office hours to address both of those things. They're bigger topics, and we can have the guests on at the office hours to extend conversation as needed. So I just wanted to highlight that to you. Somebody today mentioned completion celebrations, and that's come up more than once. And so we want to make sure that we are, addressing that and putting that out there. And so I know we do have some other past grantees that have been doing completion celebrations. And so we might have some resources to be able to bring that on and talk that through a little bit more, like what are people doing, how's it going, things like that. One thing I do want to highlight on this before we move to the next piece is that we are going to need to do a group July PLC prep. So that's one thing I know I've mentioned it slightly before, but I want to bring it up again because we're getting closer to it, is that in our past registered apprenticeships groups, cohorts, what we've done at the end is kind of a presentation, like a 3 to 5 minute spiel on what your program is, what it does, just some like high levels that we can put out there to the broader community. And so we want to do that for July as well. So more to come on that, but we will be using July's office hours to prep for that. So more information coming down the pipeline, but the idea is that we would be doing these presentations in July. The next thing that I want to give you on this before we move on is that we would like to open the March through July PLCs up to open to the broader community, open to previously funded ECE wrap intermediaries. So Steepletown, for example, would be one of those. We mentioned Southwest Child Care Resources today. They would be a part of that. And so we just think that there's like bigger, broader conversations to happen. And as you're getting ready to kind of sunset this funding opportunity, want to make sure that you're all connected in the most important ways. And I think having everybody together at PLC would be great. So we wanted to let you know that we'll be opening up those opportunities to other intermediaries. All right. Any questions about what you see in front of you here? Okay, and we'll talk more about it. And then, so next steps, upcoming and announcements. Okay, so Misty, if you could put the post-PLC survey in the chat, you always have the survey that we want you to take. So there is that. There's a couple other things that we want to point out. So reporting, and I do want you to know I have the last slide that I'll end the PLC today on has a reporting table kind of in depth. So it has more information, but here's a preview. So reporting, what we would like to point out is that statement of expenditures will be moving to a monthly cadence rather than quarterly for the purposes of this extension. And so after the combined January-February SOE, which is due on the 15th of March, the remaining SOEs through July will be due on the 15th each month thereafter. Okay, so that's a change that we want to highlight. And then just in front of you here, I just have your program reporting, dates, reporting period, and then what your SOE looks like the next upcoming. Like I said, there's another chart with more information that I'll end the PLC on. Okay, so upcoming, we have our office hours next week from 1 to 2 with Leo Mark. I hope to see you all there. We have our progress meetings, which I've had with some of you and have upcoming with others here in February. I want to share with you that if you liked what you heard today and you have other folks, employers and apprentices in your registered apprenticeship who you think could also benefit from being a part of a panel or would want to share their experience, I want to plant a seed that there will be opportunities for that. And so start thinking about it now. They'll be for like broader kind of statewide conversations, but we want to make sure that you're prepared for that and that you're developing those relationships now so that, people outside of us get to hear the greatness of the Lawandas and the Yayas and the Jens and the Vanessas. And then just finally, just remember the Google Drive. So go ahead and put that in there, Misty. That has lots of good resources and all of our slides from previous PLCs. So I'm going to go ahead and put this last slide up here so you have it all in front of you. You'll have access to this. Of course, this information is coming in the email too, but just thought it might be nice for you to take a screenshot of and take a peek at as well. So with that, I'm happy to stay on for a little bit if anybody wants to do any chatting or needs any follow-up, but you are free to go otherwise. Thank you all so much for today.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Bye, Evelyn.